What's up? This is Brad with Be Real. Hey, man, I'm so excited to be here. This is my very first podcast. And you might see them on the screen a little bit later, but behind the scenes is Cash and Barlow. And what I kind of asked of them it's my first podcast, man. I don't expect to get this perfect. Anybody expects to do the first thing, anytime they do the first thing perfect is not being reasonable. So I kind of asked them, let's just try to push through any mistakes. If I get locked up, tied up, whatever, because actually that's what life's about. And that's kind of why I'm here is, to share some of that with you. So I want to first tell you I was leaving my house this morning and I was talking to my wife, Amber, and Avery, and I was like, all right, man, it's a big day. It's my first podcast. My wife looks at me and goes, hey, man, you got this. You'll do great. But we're really dependent on you. I'm like, no pressure. And then I look at my 13-year-old. She goes, bro, I need some clothes. So I was like, all right, that kind of puts things into perspective here. I was also thinking one other deal. I hope that there's many of these podcasts. I hope, when I listen to speeches or when I listen to sermons or, sometimes those speeches or sermons really hit me. And other times I'm listening and I'm like, man, I wish so-and-so would have heard that. I wish so-and-so would have heard that. If this speaks to you and this is helpful to you and this is entertaining and it's humorous, it's all those things that I hope for it to be, enlightening, encouraging, and you have other people you feel like might benefit from it, please don't hesitate to invite them. But my last job, I was a GM of sales, and man, I did a ton of meetings. I mean, I did sales meetings. I loved them. It was my passion. I loved doing sales meetings. And this sales associate had been with me for a while, and they walk up to me and they go, "Hey, Brad, you don't seem to do the same meeting. I've never heard the same meeting." I go, well, let me tell you how this deal works, man. I just kind of look at what's going on in my life, and what issues am I dealing with? What struggles do I have? And I kind of wrap that up into something and kind of turn it into a meeting. This person said to me, they look me dead in the eye and go, man, you got a lot of issues. And so I do have, and that's going to give me tons of content to come in front of you guys, because I feel like, a lot of times what happens to one happens to many. And I want to be bold enough to come on here and share that with you. I'll be real with you. I want to make people laugh that might not have had humor in their lives. I want to encourage people that could use some encouragement. And the biggest thing, and I'll explain to you why later, is I really want to give hope to the hopeless. That's something, and I'll kind of explain that to you later, why is a big driving force in my life. And I want to make sure that if there's anything I can do to give hope to the hopeless, that's my mission. And I was a salesperson for a long time. I was pretty good at sales. I mean, I wouldn't say I was great at it, but I was a great manager, because I really, the greatest gratitude and satisfaction in my life came from watching other people succeed, or helping other people succeed, or helping people work through life. And so, speaking in front of people and helping people's what I'm passionate about. So this is just an amazing, amazing forum to be in and a platform to be in. And so I'm very excited to be here. Let me kind of just start out with, just some of the beginnings. I was born in Ohio, great town, Fremont, Ohio. It was Midwestern town. The street we lived on was beautiful, big, huge trees. House was built in the turn of the century, wood floors. There's a park at the end of the street. We were within walking distance. That was when you could walk back and forth to even first grade. We were in walking distance of the school. It was just an amazing town. If you ask me where was I from, I normally will tell you Fremont, Ohio. Because I was only there for the first 6 years, but, those first 6 years of your life are pretty impactful in your life, And so we were there, like I said, for the first 6 years of my life, just amazing, I remember the Christmases like it was yesterday. And the neighborhood, the town, anyway, it was just great. Well, my dad got promoted or got another job, and we started moving. We did move a lot, and there was some resentment, when we moved, because we would get someplace and then we'd have to move, and I wasn't a big fan of that deal, and I knew he was the one was chasing the money. But you know what? As I got older, I look back, and nothing against where I was living, but I was always thankful after the move that we had moved. And so, because it seems like some circumstances are predestined to happen, and you end up where you end up, and there's a reason that you end up there. So we moved to Bennettsville, South Carolina from Ohio. Went down there. It was a great place to be. Also, weather was great. People were very kind. You're talking about Southern hospitality, man. You had Southern hospitality. Parents got us to be members of a little country club down there, a 9-hole country club. And they started going out, hanging out more with friends. They had more friends. It was really a great place. But reflecting back on that deal, too, some things came out of that that I just wanted to share with you guys, because I feel like there's been a lot of things that I'm going to share has happened in my life. And look, this is not going to be some pity party deal. I've been extremely successful. I've been extremely blessed. I've done very well. So it's not going to be one of those deals, poor, pitiful me, but I'm going to be real. There's some tough things happened to me in my life that actually formed me. And I never was a person that felt like I was going through something because I felt like it was going to make me stronger. I always seemed to be a strong person. But as I got older in life, I did realize I was going through those things because sooner or later I was going to get to a point and I was going to need what I learned through that storm to help other people. So, I've had childhood hurts. I'll tell you, I've been homeless, went through divorces, got fired from jobs. And all of those things, not great things to celebrate, but all of those things were things that ended up forming who I was. And what do I wish some of them hadn't happened? Sure, I wish some of them hadn't happened. But you know what? If they hadn't happened, I wouldn't be who I am, So we go to South Carolina. Pressure's starting to pick up on Dad. He was just one of those old school guys, it was late 60s, early 70s. And, parents of that time, they weren't big into I love you. And, they had a different way of talking to people and talking to kids. And so I specifically remember him looking at me dead in the eye. I can tell you where I was sitting. He goes, you know what, son? Doesn't look like you're going to be very smart. Put some smart people around you. And then there was another time he's like, you know what? You're not going to amount to anything, man. You're not going to be anything. But you know what? Those dysfunctions of your parents sometimes actually fuel your fire. And I'm like I said, I'm not thankful that he said those hurtful things, but I'm telling you this, man, it drove me. It drove me. And still to today, if somebody tells me I ain't going to make it or I ain't going to amount to crap, oh man, don't bet against me, because that's going to motivate me to move, So that was just one of the things that happened. And I had to realize later on in life that I was trying to fill this hole that couldn't be filled. And had to figure some other things out. We moved again to Colorado. We moved back to Pittsburgh, and then we moved to Oklahoma in 1976. All of the places I love living. I tell you what, other thing came out of that when we moved is I have 3 amazing brothers, and every time we moved, we became closer, because that's the only friends we had when we moved into town was each other. And so we became very close. We fought like cats and dogs, but man, don't pick on my brother, man. We're going to bring down the wrath, And so, all in all, really and truthfully, I had an amazing mom. I mean, this lady was amazing. When later on hardship hit her in her life, she worked 2 or 3 jobs, had 4 boys, was a single working mom. He was just a beast, man. And, so in 1976, we had another bomb dropped on us. My mom tells us that my dad had a girlfriend, and, she was divorcing him. rightfully so. I specifically remember a little bit of me was happy, which was weird. I couldn't figure that deal out. But then that caused some things later on in life I had to figure out. Some of them I'm still dealing with. Was that started the road on abandonment and anger towards him and things like that. So those were, like I said, those are just things I had to work through. Some I'm not done working through, but that's just part of life. And so, by the time, about a couple years later, my dad did help me get a job at Safeway. And the only reason I'm sharing some of this with you guys is it starts to roll into, I love working. I love making money. I never really figured out. I mean, I did love making money. I love hustling. I love working. I worked at Safeway. I mowed yards. I waited tables. Some of it was to fill that void of people telling me I wasn't going to be successful. The other part of it, you know what? I love making money. And, another thing is all those jobs that I thought were so menial, like mowing yards and waiting tables. And then I worked for Safeway. I was doing displays and working in the produce department. I'm going to tell you something, though. Every one of those things I needed later on in life. As I went through life, I needed those skills that I had learned in those situations, especially like waiting tables and hospitality. Man, that's a gift and a tool that you need the rest of your life. And so, there again, just something else I was going through at the time, but didn't really realize that was something that I was really going to need. So I get a job at Safeway. I'm working at Safeway, finish school, high school, go to a little junior college in Claremore, and doing pretty well. Put a down payment on a house when I was 20 years old. So I bought my own house, going to college, working 2 or 3 jobs. I was hustling, man. So then I get this outside sales job, and my brother helped me get, because everybody my whole life, I'm growing up, oh, you're a salesperson, man. You're going to be a great salesperson. You're a salesperson. You're a salesperson. So I was like, all right, well, I guess I'm a salesperson. So I got an opportunity to get a sales job with a company and out of Oklahoma City, but I could still be based in Tulsa. And it was great. There again, not to, glorify myself in any means, but I love selling, and I was good at selling. And I made good money for the day, 83, 84, I was making good money. But the thing about that is I was making good money. When I was with Safeway, it was very structured. You had to be there at a certain time. You clocked in, you clocked out. That helped you to stay on course. Well, now I'm making all this money, and I start hanging out, typical deal mom and dad always tell you, watch who you hang out with. And, I learned later on in life is watch your playmates and what playground you're going to. And if you have the wrong playmates and you're on the wrong playground, probably good things ain't going to happen. So I ended up with making very good money, a lot of freedom, started hanging out with the wrong people in the wrong places, and thought I was kind of fooling everybody. And my bosses came from Oklahoma City to Tulsa, and they're like, oh, you're doing good and you're selling good, but, you're not turning in paper. Something's just not right. So I go, well, here's the deal, guys. I'm of the age. I'm going out. I'm drinking, And they're like, no, something's not right. Something's not right. And I go, well, I mean, I'm drinking. I'm going out. I'm partying. Dude, as soon as I said partying, they tied that and tethered that to drugs, which probably was happening. But they're like, oh, that's it. We'll have somebody call you from HR, and we'll figure out what we're going to do with you next. So I talked to this HR lady, and she says, here's the deal, Brad. We need you to go talk to this lady at this, rehab place, and we'll talk some more. So it comes down to it that I had a choice, and they gave me a choice. They said, okay, here's the deal. Either you go to rehab for 30 days and you keep your job, or we're going to terminate you. And because I did not want other people to know that I had a problem, that they already knew, I found out later, they all already knew it. They knew I had a problem. I specifically remember people, even at a young age, I would, drink a beer, chug a beer, and they go, you think you have a problem? I'm like, no, bro, I don't have a problem drinking. I got a problem stopping. But you know what? I didn't want to come clean. I didn't want to surface. So I said no. Well, now I'm in the wrong with the wrong people, hanging out at the wrong places, and I don't want to face up to the issues that I had, and so man, my life started to spiral, and I basically just gave up. I just quit. Didn't know where I was going. I mean, I don't even remember interviewing for jobs or nothing. I mean, I don't know what the heck I thought the outcome was going to be, but I know now it wasn't going to be good. So by the time I'm 25 years old, after living in this house for over a year, not paying the house payment, now I won't kind of go back. This is a cat that had 2 or 3 jobs since he was 16 years old. Now I'm 24 years old. That's how quick that deal can happen. And now I'm 24 years old, lost my job, and the sheriff comes knocking on my door and goes, "Hey, your house has been foreclosed on. Got a truck behind me here. They're going to load up all your stuff, and you're out of here." And they threw me out of my house. Well, I did a little sofa surfing for a little bit with some people, and until I'd get on everybody's nerves because of my issues, until people, they're like, you got to hit the road, man. So I literally ended up homeless. And later on, I'll do a podcast on homeless because there's a lot of things I wouldn't change about being homeless. Like when your butt eats out of a dumpster, you're grateful for whatever goes on after that in your life. When you face trying to figure things out or trying to survive after you come out of being homeless, you're pretty good at it, and things don't rattle you. So there's a lot of things, that I wouldn't change a thing about. What I always regretted was I wasted a lot of time. And for a period there, my mom had no idea where I was. And to the end of time, she would mention, that year or so that she didn't know where I was. And that I can't even imagine not knowing where my kids are. Right. So, I'm home. I look back at some of the things that I did to feed the beast of addiction, and I bounced at bars, and I collected money for drug dealers. Some things I mean, extremely, to look back even now of all my life, and am completely embarrassed that I did. But probably the one thing that gives me the PTSD on the deal is, man, and I don't know that I can communicate this well as I would, but this was my homeless bag. And, this is all my earthly possessions. You want to see some great looking shorts here and T-shirt. That's all I had on earth. And the thing that is an overwhelming, never forgetting thing is that it was, when I reflect back on that, it was the overwhelming sense of hopelessness. I mean, dude, when you have no money, you have no idea when you're going to eat, what you're going to eat. Then on top of that, I mean, it wasn't that long ago, I'm an outside salesperson with a very good job. And now I have no driver's license. I have no wallet. I have no clothes to even get an interview. So, your mind keeps racing because you don't think you're going to be there your whole life, but you have no exit strategy. You have no idea how you're going to get out of there. And that just keeps playing over and over in your head. Well, how am I going to get out of here? How do I take a shower? I mean, I don't even have an ID to show somebody, that if I did want to apply for a job, or if I had somebody, to help or whatever. And that part of the deal, and that's kind of why I'm here also, and that's kind of ended up being one of my main pillars in my life, is helping other people, not for monetary gain or anything like that. I do fully believe that if you help enough people, you'll never have to worry about your finances. that I believe spiritually and from a holistic state, that if you help enough people, you're gonna be blessed or given financial help. So here I am, just completely hopeless, completely abandoned. Did it to myself. Nobody to blame. I was actually glad that my family at the time really didn't have the means to do. They didn't know what to do with me. I mean, and so, but luckily they didn't, because had they had the means or tried to, I would have just messed the whole deal up, because I wasn't ready to get right. And then after all that hopelessness, some dark hopeless state, one morning I wake up, and out of nowhere, when I owned my own house, I used to listen to Christian music when I went to sleep at night. And out of nowhere, I had this song go off in my head. And it was a Christian song. And it is the first time in years that I'd ever experienced hope. And I woke up and I was like, hey, guys, here's the deal, man. You always, if you're smart, you hang out with a couple of people when you're in that place. I woke up and go, hey, I don't know what's going to happen, man, but I'm not going to be here very long. Something good's going to happen. Like, yeah, whatever. Well, sure enough, one of my friends hears about the situation that I'm in, sends me some help. I end up going to Oklahoma City on a Greyhound bus, because my friend in Oklahoma City let me stay with him and was going to get me a job with a furniture company in Oklahoma City, and that was my leg up. I went and he helped me get some jeans and shoes and stuff like that, so I could get to waiting tables until I could get on with the furniture company in Oklahoma City. Once I got hired with the furniture company in Oklahoma City, my friend Greg Porter, he went and bought me, I'll never forget, he bought me one black pair of pants, pair of dress shoes, socks, one white shirt, and a tie. And that's how I restarted my sales career. And every day because every night I'd have to wash my shirt, iron it to dry it, finish drying it in the morning. And that's how I started back in my sales career. And dude, I'm talking about, it was just a few months earlier, I'm sleeping under a bridge. Now I'm walking around in a dress shirt and tie, and I'm selling furniture. It's like a new shot in the arm, right? And I'll never forget remembering the drive from Tulsa to Oklahoma City. I was like, sweet, man. I'm leaving all my troubles behind me, man. I actually had some warrants for my arrest. Don't freak out. It was abandoning an innkeeper, which I left the hotel and didn't pay for it. Didn't know that was a felony. But anyway, I knew they were looking for me, and so I left Tulsa. I left these issues behind me. I left the playground I was playing in, left the playmates that I was playing in. I was like, I'm breaking free, man. I'm going to Oklahoma City. I got a new start. But I know now that I actually moved with me the biggest problem, and the biggest problem was me. And so I got, like I said, I love sales. I've been blessed with the ability to sell. I love people. I love helping people, even at that stage. And so I started selling furniture, started doing real well. One shirt, one pair of pants, man, no car. I will tell you, when I did finally get a car, my brother Bob I sent him $300 and he sent me a car. And at the beginning, it was working pretty good. But I worked for Mathis for almost a year and I didn't have a car. And I remember having to push start it towards the end of its career, the car's career at Mathis. And I was thinking, you big dummy, you're making all this money and you're still not taking care of things and you're having to push start your car. So another thing I always remember too is I'd get back to work after a couple of days off and people walk by me because I didn't have a car. They'd be like, hey man, I saw you walking down May Avenue. It seemed hot. Was it hot? I was like, yeah, it was hot. Why didn't you stop and help me out, man? But that was just part of the experience. And like I said, when you don't have a car and you only have one shirt, one pair of pants, when you do have things, you are more appreciative of things, And so my career started there, and I started gaining momentum, and I started dating my first wife that worked there, and we dated, and then we had my oldest daughter, Alicia, and things just continually, gradually got better, and then we found out that my son Thomas, she was pregnant with my son Thomas, and then I started thinking, all right, I gotta do something about this deal, because I wasn't taking care of my family very well. I had a wife, I had a daughter. I wasn't doing good as a parental leader in any way, shape, or form. So I remember going to bed one night, saying a prayer, going, hey, you know what, God, man, I got to quit, man. This drinking deal's on you now. It's not even my deal. I woke up the next day, never stopped drinking. But I never figured out the why. Why was I drinking in the first place? And so that took several more years for me to figure that whole deal out. But once I did quit drinking, there again, your life starts fast forwarding, because you're doing things right. And, all of life there's very few huge success moments, It's just a lot of little successes that help you to gain ground and gain momentum. There's very little time spent on the mountaintops. A lot of times it's down the hill, up the hill, in the valley. But I started making those momentum changes, and when you make better decisions, you get, your momentum keeps picking up. So we have my son Thomas. I start to gain some momentum on the sales floor. The company comes to me and goes, hey, want to be a sales manager? I'm like, yeah, absolutely. Well, that's when I realized that, like I said, I was a decent salesperson, but I really loved helping other people. And when you have somebody on your team and they start bringing you pictures of the house they move into, or they ask you to go out in the parking lot and show you a new car, that really gave me a lot of satisfaction, seeing that I was able to help people, improve people's lives. I mean, materialistically, in a tangible way, help people in their lives. And so I started doing that. Did that, sales manager for about 5 years. Started to be pretty good at that. Won a car a couple years, first in the company a couple years, and got to the point where the company, sent me back to Tulsa. And I'll never forget driving home on the Turner Turnpike, like, hey man, you left Tulsa in a Greyhound bus, and now you're rolling back over to Tulsa as a store manager in a Mercedes. And I was like, man, what a great memory that was. Came over, started working as 25 years ago as a store manager. Obviously my life gets better, the kids' lives get better, I'm making more money. Then here comes, the little voice in your head, oh man, you can have a beer, beer's not going to affect you. Well, that's a lie. If you have an addiction issue, you can't just have one beer. I tell people that all the time. I'm talking about me personally, that one beer leads to a Coors Light truck, so I can't have a beer. But, I would let that lie seep in. And so it started seeping in once I got back to Tulsa. And sure enough, before I know it, I've destroyed that marriage. So now I have Alicia, Thomas, and Charlie, and end up destroying that marriage, walking out of the house. I remember leaving the house that day, and I never went back. But I do remember what it did to my kids. And I'll never forget, too, that throughout this whole deal, my current wife and my children never gave up on me. And I'll go into that more in a second, but because I saw a lot of people that were making mistakes that I was making, that ended up not having relationships with their children, not having relationships with their spouses. And I've been extremely fortunate here at the end that did not happen to me. But I screwed up the first marriage, get with my second wife, started dating my second wife. Same thing though, man. when you have bad habits, it's very hard. I don't care how good you're doing. It's very hard for you to keep it all together. And so, it wasn't long. We dated for a while, ended up getting married. We were literally married for 11 months. And, I imploded that marriage. And a couple things happened, though, that I started to realize. Things started to come a little bit clearer to me. Is I'll never forget. So my second wife's gone. I just happened that my kids were with their mom. The older kids were with their moms. And I came to my house, and I always left my TV on, and I never knew why, but it's because I hated the quiet, and I hated being alone. And I later found out the quiet was scared of that because I had to be by myself and the whole abandonment stuff. But I walked in my house after work, and the wife was gone. The kids were at their mom's. TV was off. I don't know what happened. I don't know why the TV was off. But I walked in, and, dude, I'm telling you, I thought I was going to have a nervous breakdown. I mean, the walls came in on me, and literally like having a panic attack. Here's my account of this deal. Whatever your beliefs are, I completely respect your beliefs. I'm just going to tell you what happened to me. So I come in my house, and I'm panicked, man, and I don't know what to do. So I kneeled down on the sofa, and I laid the head on my sofa, and I just sat there, and I said, "Hey, God, man, I don't know what to do, I need some help here." And I specifically remember talking to him and go, "Man, I can't get up. I need something here. I need some help." And like I said, this is my account. And I totally respect whatever your beliefs are. But I'm laying there face down on my sofa, and all of a sudden my house smells like perfume out of nowhere. And all of a sudden this calm hits me. And I smell this amazing aroma in my house. And I've heard about this, but I've never experienced it. And I'm like, "Hey, God, is that you?" He's like, "Oh, yeah, it's me. It's me." I was like, what are you doing? He goes, "Yeah, dude, I'm in the quiet. I've always been in the quiet. I am in the only place that you were too afraid to go to." And so I then started to realize that's why I always had the radio on in the car. That's why I had music on, is I had to have all this commotion going on because I didn't want to deal with myself. And so that was tremendously helpful to me for a couple of reasons. One, there again, it was an instilling of hope. It was just something that happens that has a tendency of happening from him when I get in, some of the lowest points. It just seems like there's a spark or there's he shows up. Or I always say, it's like you're in this big storm, and he pushes his face through the clouds. It's like, "Oh, I'm still here, bro. I'm still here." And then I just laid there, and he said, "Hey, when you get up, people are not going to see you like they used to see you, and you're going to move on, man." And I remember getting changed, and I was in my closet, and I was like, I'm having this amazing moment. I was like, "Well, God, what took you so long?" He goes, "You wouldn't get out of my way, man. I needed to get you out of my way, and then I could show up." And I was like, okay, he's got a sense of humor too. So I changed clothes. I go to meet my kids. I'm telling you, I go to meet my kids, and they're at a Halloween shop, and their mom had dropped them off there. I was going to help them buy some Halloween stuff, and then they were going to come to my house. I swear to gosh, I walk in this Halloween store, and my kids see me, and they all walk over to me, give me a hug. So always been so sweet. All of a sudden they look up at me, and they'll go, "Dad, what's different about you, man? You don't look the same." Part of it was what I felt like God told me, but the other part of it was the stress and the pain and the unknown and all those things that you go through when you're going through a divorce had been lifted from me. And I could start thinking about what was my next move and what was I going to do. And sure enough, things started to get better again. And I remember though that, I wasn't dating anybody or wasn't, didn't seem like those cards were in the game at the time. And I remember that following summer going to a Drillers game, which is a AAA ball team in Tulsa. I remember one of my friends, Missy, invited me and the kids, and we went to watch a Drillers game. We're just having a blast. In walks this beautiful lady, man. And I remember having a conversation again. I go, see, God, they're out there, man. I mean, they're out there. I would just love to find somebody like that. So sure enough, that night before I go to leave there, I go over and I started talking to her. Of course I want to talk to her. She was beautiful. It was love at first sight, seriously, straight up. And I go over and I'm talking to her, and we all leave at the same time. And but here's the funny part. So I think it's just this amazing meeting. It's predestined. It's destiny, right? Well, my other friend Missy that invited me also invited my wife, not my wife at the time, but my friend Amber, because she was good friends with Amber and she was good friends with me. So Amber calls her, tells her she's at the ball game. So Missy goes downstairs to bring her up to this suite that we were in. And here's the funny part is before they walk in the room, Missy looks Amber dead in the eyes and goes, here's the deal, bro. The guy I've got you here, I want you to introduce you to this guy. He's sitting on the sofa. He's this blonde-haired guy. Goes through the whole deal, who he was, what he was, all that stuff. But here's the funny part. And then she goes, there's this other blonde guy. I understand he's got a great personality. He's funny. But I'm just telling you, you need to stay away from this guy. He's a dumpster fire. I mean, he's got more red flags than a golf course, right? And so she tells her before she even comes in the room, you need to stay away from Brad. And sure enough, anytime anybody tells you stay away from somebody, we were drawn to each other. And I contacted Missy later and asked for her phone number, and rightfully so and smart of Amber's side. Aunt Missy said, "Nah, don't mess with him, man. He's about to finish up his divorce, and when that all happens, then maybe later." So and we did. But sure enough, then the door, I was already, but they had to get the divorce finalized and all that other stuff. So sure enough, once the divorce was finalized, I hit Missy back up again, and Amber agreed to go eat dinner with me, and then went with a group of friends, and then we went to got on a real date, went and saw a real movie, went and ate dinner. And where I was, and later she was too. We're just madly in love with each other. But then it was she had a son, Aiden, and we about a year later we get married. Actually, yesterday was my 15th wedding anniversary. So thankful for it. And we get married, and things there again, you make right decisions, you do the next right thing, good things happen. And so we're married, things are getting better, but there again, I still have my drinking issues. Luckily, we stayed in touch with our pastor, always did, because he was a friend of ours before we both married each other. And so we stayed in touch with each other, and that's when my pastor was like, "Hey, this isn't just going to hurt you and Aiden," which was Amber's son at the time. He goes, "This whole deal, this drinking and all this stuff, man. You've destroyed your life a couple of different times. One of these times, you're not going to be able to come back from it." And so I remember him looking on his computer and was like, "I heard about this Celebrate Recovery deal." And the Celebrate Recovery deal would be a good deal. It'd be a good deal for you to start going to, give you something else to do besides what you're currently doing, change what you're doing, change who you're doing it with, and where you're doing it at. That's later on what I found out to be. And I'll pick up on my next podcast from there. and we'll get going from there. But I wanted to kind of have a few little wrap up deals here, and just share with you. One, like I said, I'm extremely thankful to be here. This there again is, I don't believe in coincidences. There's a reason that I'm here. There's a reason that my good friend has his podcast studio. And when I called him to tell him what happened recently, I'm in a transition stage. I'll talk about that more later. I told him, kind of what I wanted to do. I wanted to do some social media. I wanted to do podcasts. He's like, podcast? Oh man, I've got a podcast studio. Come do some podcasts with me. And so that's kind of my plan. It's funny too. I tell people, I want to do some social media. I want to do some podcasts. I want to do some keynote speaking. I want to do some, business consulting. This is just the season I'm at in my life. And people don't understand it. And I understand that. But I tell them, what I really am passionate about, which is social media, podcasts, keynote speaking, business consulting, coaching, coaching people, And about half the people I tell it to go, okay, man, we're really going to hope and pray you get a job. I go, well, really? I wish you would hope and pray that becomes my job, because that's what I really like doing. But I understand it's hard because people don't really understand it. So, but let me put a bow on this deal. Never underestimate the power of faith. And I'll tell you, I've told you a little bit about my mom, but I remember calling my mom one time, and I don't even remember what the situation was. And I was telling Mom, this horrific situation was going on in my life. She's like, yeah, baby, but your kids love you. You got a great wife. All the people that you work with love you. You got all this going on. Like, oh, I know, Mom, but this is going on in my life. And so we just keep going back and forth. I keep going back to this one thing that's not perfect in my life. She keeps giving me this whole list of things that are just amazing in my life. And she goes, as a mom does, she goes, listen, it was on the phone. She goes, listen to me, Brad. She goes, the adversary is never bigger than gratitude. The adversary is never bigger than the blessings. You need to remember that, son. But it comes down to how are you looking at it. And man, I'll never forget that when I ever get into that situation, the only reason I could be in that situation or that mindset is I'm focusing more on the negative than I am the positive. And whichever one you focus on, it's going to manifest. Whatever one you focus on will grow. So if you're focused on all that you have in your life, then all the positive you have in your life, those things are going to grow. If you're focusing on what's jacked up in your life, jacked up things in your life are gonna grow. I'll tell you another thing too. Negative words, take those negative words or people speaking negative into your life as motivation. Somebody tells you you're not worth a crap. Somebody tells you ain't gonna make it. Somebody tells you don't have the tools you need to get there. Don't believe them. That is coming out of their mouth is not true until you believe them. Once you believe you're not going to make it, once you believe you don't have the tools, once you believe the whole world is against you, then guess what? The whole world's against you. You don't have the tools you need, and you ain't going to make it. So the other thing is that I strongly encourage that I had to figure out later is don't be afraid of the quiet. Man, I'll tell you more where this comes from later, but it's a huge deal is forgive yourself. Forgive others around you. Take some time, man, to celebrate let me tell you this, in my opinion, very seldom, I mentioned this earlier, very seldom is there these huge, big chunks of anything that you can label as success. Normal, sustainable success is a bunch of really good, positive momentum steps moving in the right direction. But if you're not, now guys, I'm telling you this, this is not something I'm great at. But I'm just telling you that if you will take time to celebrate those little successes, because there's very few times we spend time on the mountain, that those little steps are the journey. Those little bit of successes is this success. I mean, what ends up happening is you look back and you look on your life, even though you're trying as hard as you can, you look back and there's a lot of time has gone by. You know, a lot of time has passed. Like I've got a 13-year-old now, and you know, I had her later in life, and I was like, man, I'm going to slow down, and I'm going to remember this, and I'm going to do better about, you know, celebrating this, which I have. Don't get me wrong, but still, I look back and I'm like, now she's 13 years old. So let me just ask you this too. Do me a favor. I got the rest of this story. I got some things I want to share with you later. Like I said, my intention of this deal is you've kind of seen it all in a nutshell here. My intention here is to entertain, but to entertain also is to point out certain things that could be helpful. I want to laugh. I want to be humorous. I want to give hope. Literally, that you can't see these lights that are on me, but there's a light on me. When I sat down, here's my thought, my prayer in my head. You know what, God, man, I appreciate the light. I appreciate the people that are here, but I just want to be a reflector, man. I just want to take that light that's coming and it's hit me, and I want to shine it into the darkness. I want to shine it on the people that need it. And I want to be a beacon to people. I want to be helpful to people, because I'm telling you, nothing's permanent. And I'm walking proof that you can get to the other side of this deal. I'm standing here telling you that there's another side. And I'll say this probably more than one time. Some of the biggest negative adversarial situations in my life, on the other side of those, is the biggest blessing. So come back, man. Let me wrap this deal up. Let me share with you guys some more. Come back. If you enjoyed yourself, you know what? Tell some other people. If you didn't enjoy yourself, who gives a dang? Share this with some other people. Tell them to come see us. Hey, you guys go have a great day, and always, always remember to be real.